I got so emotional because
Jackie Jackson just broke down in tears over the moment Jaafar turned into Michael. And what left the entire Jackson family stunned was this chilling feeling as if Michael had never left the stage. We all know who Jackie Jackson is, right? The eldest brother of the Jackson family. The man who stood beside Michael from that small house in Gary, Indiana, to the Jackson 5 Motown, and then the stages where Michael became the king of pop. But this time, Jackie was not talking about glory. He was talking about the moment that made his heart feel like it was being squeezed. When Jaafar Jackson appeared on screen, Jackie no longer saw a young actor trying to imitate a legend. No, he saw the shadow of his younger brother coming back through the Jackson bloodline itself. The boy became Michael on screen. That was not just praise. It was a direct blow to the memory of a brother who had lost his sibling. And when you connect Jackie's journey from the days of rehearsing with Michael to the moment he watched his little brother get pulled away from the family's arms by the whole world, that moment feels cold to the bone. Why did Jackie cry? Why did Jaafar leave the entire Jackson family choked up?
Today I'm taking you into the moment when the past came back to life, right in the middle of a movie theater. Don't take your eyes off the screen, because this story is not just about a role. It is Michael returning in a form no one was emotionally prepared to witness.
The child who never grew up. In the early 1970s, no one in America could escape the pull of a name called the Jackson 5. Songs like I Want You Back, a BC, The Love You Save, and I'll Be There did not just take a group of black brothers from Gary, Indiana, to the top of the charts. They turned the small Jackson family home into part of pop music history. And standing in that lineup beside Michael Jermaine Tito and Marlon was Jackie Jackson, the eldest brother, the one who witnessed everything from the very beginning. But behind the bright suits, the synchronized dance moves, and the smiles that captivated millions of viewers was a much heavier reality, a family childhood being forced into shape under the heat of ambition, discipline, and stage lights. Jackie did not grow up in anything normal. Around him, life was not just school, the neighborhood games in the yard, or quiet evenings for a Midwestern boy. Jackie's youth was pulled into long rehearsals, local stages, talent contests, and then trips far from home when the Jackson 5 began to be known across America. More frightening than pressure from the audience was the pressure inside his own house. Joseph Jackson, the family's strict father, saw in his children not just talent, but a way out of Gary, out of the steel mills, out of the cramped life he did not want his family trapped in forever. And in that journey, Jackie was a son, an eldest brother, and a piece of a performing machine that was growing bigger every day. Jackie, at the height of the Jackson 5 glow, was really a young man, forced to learn how to grow up, while the whole world was watching his family. While the youngest brother beside him, Michael, slowly became the center no one could look away from. It was from those suffocating years that Jackie Jackson became one of the people who understood Michael best. Many people later saw Michael only as an icon, a genius, a phenomenon beyond every limit. But Jackie saw Michael before the world had time to call his little brother the king of pop. He saw little Michael in the house in Gary in rehearsals on those early stages, in the moment when the whole family was still trying to prove they deserved to be heard. Jackie understood better than anyone what it felt like for a child to be pulled away from childhood and turned into a performer. He lived under the same roof, the same discipline, the same dream, the same pressure to sing, write, dance, write, smile, write, and stand in the right place before he could even fully understand the price of fame. When he watched Michael grow under an increasingly blinding light, Jackie did not just see a star rising. He saw his younger brother being taken by the world piece by piece. That bond does not need to be explained with big words. It lives in the years they stood on stage together, heard the audience screaming together, went through Motown television tours, dressing rooms, flights, and exhausted nights after the lights went down. To the public, that was music history. To Jackie, it was real life. It was family. It was memory. It was the little brother who once stood right beside him before the world turned Michael into a legend too large for anyone in the family to touch the way they once could. The eldest brother, and decades of quiet protection. That is why Jackie's tears in front of Jaafar were not simple at all. Because when Jaafar stepped onto the screen, Jackie did not only see Michael's posture, voice, and dance moves. He saw the entire storm attached to that name. He saw the little brother once hurt by their father. He saw the star hunted by the media. He saw the man the whole world once placed on an operating table. He saw a life that was both unimaginably brilliant and suffocatingly lonely. So when Jackie said Jaafar became Michael on that screen, it was not a polite compliment for his nephew. It was the moment an older brother saw his younger brother return, carrying both the glow and the wounds. And in those few dark seconds inside the theater, Jackie was no longer watching a movie. He was facing a part of life the Jackson family has never truly escaped. Jaafar Jackson, the flawless copy. When Lionsgate announced the biographical film project about Michael Jackson, all of Hollywood held its breath and asked one question: who on earth would be brave enough and brilliant enough to step into the enormous shadow of the king of pop? The final answer did not come from loud casting calls at elite art schools, but from inside the Jackson family itself, Jaafar Jackson. Jaafar is the son of Jermaine Jackson, Michael's biological brother, and a former member of the legendary group the Jackson 5. Carrying the direct bloodline of the most famous musical family in the world, Jaafar has physical traits that are almost perfectly suited to recreate his uncle. But the title Michael Jackson's nephew was not a VIP ticket carrying him to glory. On the contrary, it was a golden shackle weighing tons on the shoulders of a young man. Playing Michael Jackson is not simply memorizing lines or putting on a sparkling rhinestone jacket. This is about recreating the biggest cultural icon in the history of global music, a man with an intense, sharp-eyed fandom, ready to dissect every frame for mistakes. More frightening than that, Jaafar had to become one of the most controversial figures in Hollywood history, a genius standing on the line between ultimate worship and some of the darkest accusations of the century. One small mistake in performance, and Jaafar's entire career could be buried beneath the media tower. And yet from the very first days of filming, the entire crew began to notice something extremely strange, even ghostly, happening on set. If Hollywood only needed someone who looked like Michael, it could have found thousands of stand-ins or professional impersonators out there. But what Jaafar brought to the set went far beyond makeup work or CGI simulation. It was an invisible spiritual connection. When the cameras were not rolling, Jaafar was just a calm young man. But the moment the director called action, a different kind of energy seemed to take over his body. Members of the crew, from veteran lighting experts to set assistants, began to get chills as they witnessed Jaafar's expressions accurate down to the millimeter. This was not an effort to imitate. It was the way he lowered his head to shyly avoid a gaze, the awkward smile that carried Michael's signature whenever he stood before a crowd, and especially the eyes. Jaafar's eyes on set carried a light that was both innocent and deeply sorrowful, the kind of gaze people could only find in Michael Jackson. Jaafar Jackson's goosebump-level authenticity did not only affect strangers, it completely knocked down the people who had once lived, breathed, and shared the most private moments with Michael. Among them was Jackie Jackson. As the eldest brother who had witnessed Michael Jackson from the days when he was a little boy in that small house in Gary until he became the biggest icon on the planet, Jackie knew every habit, every tilt of the head, every rise and fall in the king of pop's voice. When the project began filming, Jackie appeared constantly around that story. At first, people thought he was only there to support his nephew emotionally, but as time went on, Jackie's presence became more silent and heavy. Many times people on set saw Jackie Jackson standing motionless and alone behind the director's monitor. He did not say a word, his arms folded tightly across his chest, his eyes locked on every movement Jaafar made. In the hazy light of the set, people saw quiet tears rolling down the face of the Jackson family's eldest brother. For Jackie, seeing Jaafar on the monitor was no different from colliding with the past. The young man standing there under those lights had awakened every memory of the younger brother he lost in the summer of 2009. The deeper they went into filming, the more often these possessed moments seemed to appear. The atmosphere around the set no longer felt like a film crew at work. It became a mesmerizing spiritual space. There were moments everyone on set completely forgot they were looking at Jaafar, one production member revealed. Those were long night shoots when the entire crew was exhausted in the cold of the set. But the second Jaafar stepped out in performance costume, released that signature falsetto, and spun through the night, the whole space seemed to freeze. Technicians stopped moving, the director forgot to call cut, and everyone fell silent. For those few short, insane seconds, no one thought they were watching a biopic worth hundreds of millions of dollars. They did not see a young actor trying to complete the role that could change his life. They truly felt, with their instinct and their skin, that Michael Jackson was in that room. The soul of the late superstar seemed to be borrowing the body of his own nephew to send one greeting, one final message to the world. Jackie Jackson watches the first scenes. When the first footage of the Michael blockbuster began to play, Jackie reacted completely differently from what people imagined. He did not get emotional right away. He went frighteningly silent. The eldest Jackson brother's eyes widened, studying every frame thrown from the projector with extreme care. Jackie's face at that moment looked like stone, almost showing no emotion at all. It was the reaction of a man who understood the cruelty of fame too well, a man who came here with suspicion and a cold head to see what they would do with the memory of his younger brother. He was examining, judging, and maybe bracing himself for disappointment. But that strong defensive cage could not last long against destiny. The tension reached its peak when the screen shifted to a scene recreating the golden era of the Victory Tour. The simulated stage lights burst open, tearing through the darkness on the screen. On the screen, Jaafar Jackson, wearing the legendary performance outfit, suddenly snapped his head around sharply and decisively. But what made the entire screening room seem to stop breathing was not the dance move, but what happened right after it. Jaafar froze, looked straight into the camera, gave a soft smile full of shyness, then gently lowered his eyes. A signature combination of expressions, both proud on stage and deeply innocent, bashful in Michael Jackson's real life. In that exact moment, Jackie Jackson completely froze. The emotionless wall Jackie had tried to build throughout the screening collapsed completely in an instant. His whole body trembled. No longer the eldest brother who had lived through more than half a century of storms inside the Jackson family, Jackie lowered his head, his shaking hands rising to cover his face. The tears he had held back and run from for decades suddenly broke open, pouring out uncontrollably. He began wiping his tears in a hurry, as if trying to hold on to his composure, but the choked sobs still escaped unconsciously in the silent theater. Jackie Jackson's collapse did not come from expensive movie effects, nor because Jaafar had a face that looked exactly like Michael's, as if cast from the same makeup mold. It wasn't because Jaafar looked like Michael. It was because he brought back a feeling Jackie thought he would never get to feel again in his life. It was a feeling belonging to the most sacred corner of memory, something he had buried since that fateful summer of 2009. For the past 17 years, Jackie had lived in a world completely without Michael Jackson. He had gotten used to facing accusations, smear documentaries, and the media's intrusive questions. But he had never mentally prepared himself to face Michael's presence one more time. From Jaafar's footage, the echoes from the past began rushing back, tearing through the room. The smallest, most delicate pieces of the real Michael, that gentle energy, the deep wound hidden behind the superstar glow, suddenly rose up with force. It felt as if the brightest parts of the King of Pop's soul had suddenly appeared right there in the room, stepping out from the screen to comfort the eldest brother who lost his younger sibling that summer. The moment Jackie broke down in tears inside the screening room left an expensive lesson for everyone present about the true value of this biopic. The people who truly loved Michael Jackson were not reacting to acting technique. They were reacting to memory. To the public, Jaafar Jackson may be a talented actor, an outstanding transformation with perfect technical marks in dance and delivery. But to Jackie Jackson, to Chris Tucker, to the Jackson family, to the people who had once hugged Michael, heard him laugh, and seen him cry behind the wings, they did not need a technical exam. What they needed, and what they found in Jaafar, was the essence of a loved one who had passed away. Jaafar was not trying to perform to please critics. He was opening a door so the people left behind could meet the person they loved again. Jackie Jackson's tears were the strongest and most honest confirmation that no film critic could deny Michael Jackson in some miraculous way had truly returned through his own nephew. The pain the world never understood about Jackie Jackson. Across more than 70 years of life, Jackie Jackson was not just Michael Jackson's brother. He was one of the rare people who witnessed Michael from the smallest starting point, before the lights, before Motown, before the whole world called his younger brother the King of Pop. Jackie saw Michael when he was still a child in Gary, Indiana, standing inside a cramped house, rehearsing with his brothers, trying to catch the rhythm, trying to do it right, trying not to let the family down. He stood beside Michael on the Jackson 5 stage, watching the smallest boy in the group step forward and make the whole room fall silent. And from there, Jackie was also the one who watched Michael gradually move farther away from the image of a younger brother in the family, becoming an icon so enormous that even the family sometimes could no longer reach him. That is why the moment Jaafar Jackson appeared on screen felt so heavy. To the public, Jaafar was just a young actor taking on the biggest role of his life. To Hollywood, it was a dangerous test. Could Michael's nephew become Michael without turning everything into an imitation? But to Jackie, it was not that simple. He was not just watching a biopic. He was seeing his own family blood step into the image of the younger brother he had lost. And when Jackie said Jaafar became Michael on that screen, that sentence was not just praise for acting. It was like an old wound being touched. Because Jackie did not see a legend being recreated. He saw the posture, the movement, the stage energy, the gentleness and the loneliness that once lived behind Michael's glow. There are memories only an eldest brother can keep. They are not images edited for television, nor stories rewritten after Michael's death. They are memories of a younger brother who once sang with him, grew up with him, went through tours with him. Then step by step was pulled away from the family's arms by the world. Jackie lived long enough to see Michael worshipped, scrutinized, misunderstood, commercialized, and finally turned into a memory the whole world fought to define. But to Jackie, Michael was first of all still his younger brother. Not a monument, not a scandal, not an icon for other people to dissect. He was the boy from years ago who once stood among the Jackson brothers and sang with all his innocence. That is why Jackie's tears did not come only from pride. They came from the strange feeling of the past suddenly taking shape in front of him. Jaafar was not just playing Michael. He carried the face of the Jackson bloodline, carried family memory, carried a piece of legacy no outsider could ever truly own. That moment made Jackie seem to see two generations overlapping, the Michael of the past and the Jaafar of today. One had gone. One was trying to step into that light with all the respect he could give. And between those two shadows stood Jackie, the eldest brother, the man who had witnessed it all from the small house in Gary to the biggest stage in the world. So when Jackie cried, those were not the tears of a viewer moved by a good movie. They were the tears of a brother seeing his younger sibling return, even if only for a few brief minutes on screen. And perhaps what made that moment hurt the most was that Jackie understood better than anyone Jaafar could bring Michael back to life before everyone's eyes. But when the theater lights came on, Michael was still no longer there. The people who never left Michael. When a monument named Michael Jackson was pulled down from the throne by the world, people often saw a familiar Hollywood script, fewer handshakes, silent phone calls, and people who once lived off that glow suddenly stepping back to protect their reputations. When storms of scandal surrounded Michael, the Jackson name was no longer tied only to music stages and records. It became a battlefield. And in the middle of that battlefield, there was an older brother quietly forced to watch his younger brother be redefined by the world, day after day. Jackie Jackson did not stand outside that story. He was not a famous friend who showed up and then walked away. He was blood. He was the eldest brother who had witnessed Michael when he was still a small boy in the house in Gary, Indiana. Before Motown, before the Jackson 5, before the world knew the name. Michael Jackson. To Jackie, Michael did not begin with Neverland scandal or vicious headlines. Michael began with family rehearsals, small stages, and the voice of a youngest brother that made even his own brothers stop in their tracks. Jackie stood beside Michael when that boy stepped forward in the Jackson 5, watching his younger brother transform from a shy child into the soul of the entire stage. But later, Jackie also witnessed something more painful the more famous Michael became. The harder it was for the family to keep him close. The world took Michael piece by piece. The public worshipped him. The media hunted him. Rumors, accusations, and arguments turned Michael into an enormous image that even his loved ones had to painfully watch from behind. So when Jackie saw Jaafar Jackson transform into Michael on screen, that moment was not just the pride of an uncle. It was a collision between memory and loss. Jaafar was not just performing a legend. He carried Jackson blood, stepped into the shape of his late uncle, and made Jackie see a part of Michael come alive before his eyes. When Jackie said Jaafar became Michael on that screen, it was not simply a compliment about acting. It was the sentence of an eldest brother pulled backward through an entire lifetime of memories. He saw the stage energy. He saw the gentleness. He saw the shadow of the little brother who once stood beside him before the whole world came between them. Jackie did not need to turn Michael into a saint to love his brother. He knew Michael was human, not a perfect statue. But he also understood something outsiders often forget. Before Michael Jackson became an icon for the public to argue over, he was a son, a brother, an inseparable part of the Jackson family. And that is why Jackie's tears were heavier than an ordinary emotional reaction. They were the tears of someone who had walked with Michael from the starting point, watched his brother rise so high no one could reach him, and then lost him forever. Jaafar could make the whole theater remember Michael. But for Jackie, that moment hurt even more, because he did not just see Michael on screen. He saw his younger brother again. If you find hidden corners of showbiz history and investigative stories like this truly compelling, don't forget to hit like to support the channel, press the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell right beside it. Your support is the biggest motivation for me to keep digging into Hollywood's top secret files and buried mysteries.
We do not make any absolute claims regarding the accuracy of the data presented, and we are not responsible for any personal decisions made based on the content of this video. From the stage to the big screen, their influence is undeniable. Thank you for watching this tribute. If you enjoyed this walk through history, leave a like and subscribe to the Silent Legends archives. This video specifically recommended for you reveals a truth that few people talk about. Watch it now to see the full picture. Take care of yourselves.